Hi there, I'm Rex King. Welcome back to another episode of Monday Night Movie. Today we're talking about Across the Pacific. Across the Pacific was directed by John Huston, for the most part. You see, after Pearl Harbor, he was called up for the Army, so he left Vincent Sherman in charge of the directing. He also left like halfway through filming the climax. He took the script with him, saying that Bogey, Humphrey Bogart, would be able to find a way out of the situation. What resulted was John Huston later on saying that he felt like the ending of the film was unrealistic and didn't stick with the tone of the rest of the movie. This film was compared a lot to The Maltese Falcon. It's easy to see why. The film stars three stars of The Maltese Falcon, Mary Astor, Humphrey Bogart, Sidney Greenstreet, and was directed by the same guy who directed The Maltese Falcon, John Huston. And even their ad campaigns were very similar. You see, Warner Brothers really wanted to capture the what happened with the Maltese Falcon by using this film. However, this film, as far as tone and ideas go, couldn't be further from the Maltese Falcon. Across the Pacific is about a guy named Richard Leland. He is a ex-soldier who was dishonorably discharged for misappropriation of funds. This resulted in him going on an ocean cruise liner that was bound for the Panama Canal. On the boat, he meets Dr. Lorenz, played by Sidney Greenstreet, and Alberta Marlowe, played by Mary Astor. They all hit it off pretty well until the first stop of the cruise liner, where it's quickly revealed that Leland is in fact a spy working for Army intelligence who has been sent to infiltrate Dr. Lorenz's organization to figure out what sinister plot he has for the canal. This adds some tension and a decent concept that causes these characters to interact with each other in a certain manner. I love how the film uses this concept to add some quick wit and some tension every time the characters interact with each other. To make matters even more interesting, when they finally make landfall at the canal, he Leland starts his deception, Lorenz starts his plot, and we finally start to realize what Miss Marlowe's entire role in this entire venture actually is. So the tension here is really well done. As long as this film had stuck the ending, I would say that the story was probably really good. Too bad that ending kind of ruins a good film. You see, the story is based in realism. Even though it's a spy thriller, our main characters don't do anything outlandish and don't survive anything that we can't say is unsurvivable. But at the end, without spoiling anything, our main character is captured and he quickly escapes, stops the villain's plot, and basically walks out of the situation without barely a scratch on him. And to say that odds were against him is, well, understating the matter. So I feel like this story, towards the end, just loses itself. Now, this is probably due to the fact that the director and the script both were gone at the point of filming that climax, so they had to rely on another director's point of view. But in doing so, it feels like it doesn't belong in the same movie as everything else that happens in this film. That being said, the rest of the story is pretty good. It's paced really well, fast paced, and the action is decent enough. I would say that this story is a 6 out of 10. Mainly due to the fact that, again, that ending is kind of a disappointment, but the rest of the story I still think holds up. Then we have the characters, and here's something else that's a little bit of a problem for the film. None of these characters are really three-dimensional people. Our main character is your typical hero character. Miss Marlowe is a character who is both could be either a damsel in distress or a femme fatale. They go down the damsel in distress route. Spoiler alert. But they don't do anything with these two characters that I haven't seen in other films before. I would say the only character that felt really interesting was Dr. Lorenz, and I really liked the character and his explanation for why he's attracted to Japanese culture. So none of these characters are bad. I do wish that our two main leads, our love interest and our main good guy, were better developed. But overall, I think this film does an okay job of what they had to do. So I'm going to give characters a 6 out of 10. Then we got the performances, and well, when you get three performers who performed together before in the same film, you're going to get decent chemistry. Humphrey Bogart, Mary Astor, and Sidney Greenstreet do a fantastic job. Humphrey Bogart has this type of character down to a science. Mary Astor is able to keep up with him, which is what the character needs to do. And Sidney Greenstreet brings a certain type of finesse and yet menace to the character of Dr. Lorenz. I really enjoyed his interpretation of the character, and by far his performance is probably the best here. All the performers do a good job. Now, I do have another minor nitpick, and that has to do more with the time period than the film itself. The Japanese characters are all played by Chinese actors, and I usually prefer when the films that I watch stick with actors of the ethnicity of the characters. That being said, this was a common practice back then, so I can see why the film did it. Now, there have been some people who claim that this is due to Japanese internment, but since the film was well underway before Pearl Harbor happened, I doubt that. I think that was more just Hollywood being Hollywood at the time, and I can kind of get over it. I still think it's bad that they didn't use Japanese actors for the roles that they were casting, but like I said, it was commonplace back then, so I kind of have to overlook it almost. So, that out of the way, I do think the performances were really good, and I did enjoy them in this film. So I'm going to give the performances a 8 out of 10. Then we have the visuals, and the visuals here aren't nothing to really write home about, even for 1942 standards. I do like a lot of the scenes with the ship. They didn't actually have the ship out on the water. They built hydraulics for the ship to move up and down to give it the illusion that it was on the water. And I like that idea. But everything else afterwards, it's just kind of standard and stuff I've seen in films from the era before. It's still good. There's nothing here that's bad, and you can clearly tell what's going on. So I think this cinematography is alright for the most part. I would say this visuals are a 6 out of 10. Good, but not spectacular. Then we have the musical score. And the music score here is pretty okay. I mean, it's nothing I haven't heard before, like rousing horns whenever we're about to go into an action scene, decent tension with the music. It adds the appropriate sound for each individual moment. It's just nothing I haven't seen or heard before, so I do appreciate it, but I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It didn't wow me, but it definitely was good. So my final verdict, well, Across the Pacific isn't the most notable film from the Golden Age. It is a good movie with decent paced action, decent paced story, good characters for the most part, and really great performances. If you like Humphrey Bogart films and you haven't seen Across the Pacific, it's worth a watch. So I'm going to give the film a 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed this one, and I do recommend it. Next week, we take a look at the Angry Birds movie, and I'll see you then.